Are you going to listen to the small voice that yells and screams? Or are you going to actually look, ask questions, and get real answers and make real decisions?
Rhys is a founder and CEO of social AI firm EkkoBar. He's worked with the world's biggest names in tech, including Microsoft, HP, Google, Procter & Gamble. And he also holds a master's degree in advanced analytics from Harvard. So nice to have you, Rhys. In your own words, what is EkkoBar?
Well, thanks for having us. It's a little tricky to explain in ways because we service sports, entertainment, and brand marketing, and we service different groups within the ecosystem. But, I'd like to take us back about 25 years ago. When basically you watched TV and sports in your living room. You went to the stadiums, you went to the theater. Things were pretty simple. Brand marketers did traditional offline advertising, radio, TV, and print. And then the digital revolution happened. And everything changed and put everything into chaos. And since then, all three of these organizational types have tried to figure out how to play catch up. Like, how do they engage modern fans who are working on multiple devices and working to watch multiple shows at once or multiple sports at once? And, TV and print and radio is very generic ads, right? They don't appeal to individuals, and that's not the world we live in today. People want authentic voices. And so with all of this, everyone's trying to play catch up, as I said, and trying to figure out how to engage with these modern audiences. So what we've seen is a lot of, we have the traditional playbook, we're going to make some tweaks, and we're going to try this, and we're going to try that. And not a lot of things are working. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what's being said. And in short, they're forfeiting revenue. And we saw this problem back a number of years ago in the entertainment industry with how studios and networks were using social media, right? They were spending millions on trailers and shows and making guesses of things without knowing what the audience really cared about. And I thought there had to be a better way. And social media is the one place where everybody talks. And so why not utilize social media to find answers? The problem was the legacy dashboards that were out there counted things back in the day when followers mattered. Followers don't matter anymore. Answers matter. But a lot of these social listening and analytic tools don't provide answers, and that's what I wanted to create when I started EkkoBar.
What is the EkkoBar story?
It actually started, as we like to say, because of sex and vampires. And I know that may sound a little strange, but hang with me here for a moment. I was on my third startup working with Greg Feinberg. He is the executive producer of True Blood back in the day, and a good friend and a quite brilliant man. And we were talking about stuff, and he was telling me about the struggles of social media and marketing, what was going on. And I said to him, well, funny enough, on the weekends, I've been helping a friend of mine with understanding some legacy analytic dashboards because the marketing company was trying to figure out what social media platform to use for advertising, how they wanted to engage with it with their customers. And so as I'm looking at these tools, providing all these numbers, I thought, I better look at the raw data, right? I'm a data guy. It makes more sense. I'm a nerd. So I was looking at the raw data going, it doesn't seem right here. There's like a disconnect between the data and what they're showing. The numbers were correct. The value was not. So in my spare time, I like to say I put pen to paper and fingers to keyboard. And I actually wrote some software using raw data to try to find influencers. No idea how to test it. I had no relevant contacts in brand marketing. And then one day, Greg and I were talking about True Blood, and he mentioned that they want to do a special to kick off the next season. They wanted to have a celebrity fan who was just a big fan of the show, do this half-hour live special, talking to cast and crew and walking around the sets. And HBO had been spending months trying to find the right person. So I told him about my software. He goes, let's try it. So we put the information in, and out came Adam Lambert, the guy from American Idol. I mean, the goth singer. He looks like a freaking vampire. I mean, Greg was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Calls up HBO, and HBO goes, oh, sorry, we just hired someone. And for not getting anyone in trouble, we won't say who. But she had no connection to the show. She had never watched the show. Her fans would have no connection to the show. She was just a good comedic actor. So the special ran, and as you can imagine, it didn't go well. So I talked to Greg on Monday after the premiere Sunday night. I'm like, how are you doing? He goes, don't ever mention this to me again. However, you should turn that formula into a business. So we have Greg to thank for basically helping us solidify the idea of EkkoBar. And he's been a friend, an advisor, an investor with us for the entire time.
That's awesome. So from the time when you started, where are you now?
So once we had the original idea, right, the next step is, all right, let's go build something a little more real. The problem was AI wasn't in a place where it was really usable yet. Natural language processing was nowhere near ready. NLP interfaces were not even a concept then. So there wasn't a lot we can do, and I thought, I better learn more. So that's when I decided to go back and get my advanced degree at Harvard. So went through that process, which took a few years. COVID was in the middle of it, so how fun for all of us. And then afterwards, things were starting to come into its own. So we started playing more with the data. We started researching more. We started experimenting with algorithms and theories and building and growing and testing and showing and customer fit and, the vicious cycle that never seems to end. Now we have launched our main platform. We did it a few weeks ago at TED Sports. It is blowing up. Everybody's reaching out to us. We're getting emails, actual phone calls as well. Thankfully, no text messages, so people aren't going that route. But I can tell you in the last 2 days, we have 14 sales meetings for people reaching out to us because what we're doing is unlike anything anyone has ever seen before. And it always boils down to the question and the answer.
So in your own words, how do you help companies with EkkoBar?
So back when I was explaining, a little bit about what we do, that's kind of the challenge is it depends who you're helping. We're not just building accounting software for individuals, which is very straightforward. So we can tell you, for marketing agencies, if they're trying to find the right authentic voice to represent a brand, right? They manually look on social media, they Google, they chat GPT, they spend weeks and weeks or months trying to find the right person. With our application and using social media as an intelligent database, we can actually surface people within seconds. So there's a great example. We can tell you, for example, news organizations, and we've got upcoming big sports events. So those sport organizations are using it to find research on athletes to promote on broadcast, right? Say, oh, well, you just achieved this great thing. Looking at your childhood, you always talked on social media about how you and your family did skiing or whatever, right? So you've got that. On the talent side, Netflix, for example, put out the trailer Frankenstein. We analyzed it, and we were able to tell them what the fans connected to. So now they can make more trailers if they want based on that information. We're doing another project for an entertainment streamer. They're trying to decide between which actress to hire. All talent aside, they were curious what fans think of these different actors. And so we're able to analyze it at a very deep level. And again, we're not just talking about numbers, right? We're talking about value in the answers. So it really depends on who you are and what you want to accomplish. But at the end of the day, it's all about growing revenue, right? It's about answering the right questions. It's about protecting and growing your brand.
So in other words, you take the noise of social media, use your AI tool, and then you analyze the data. And then based on that, companies have much easier way to create marketing campaigns or whatever they need to do with the data you provide.
That's correct.
Perfect. That's amazing. That's really amazing. And tell us, you just won the sports tech pitch competition at Rally Innovation. So what does that mean for EkkoBar?
It means a lot of things, actually. It's a sense of pride for us, of course. For someone who speaks a lot, I am on the spectrum. So getting up in front of a large crowd is always scary for me. And I thought, how do we differentiate ourselves from the other candidates in the competition? And so we did some very specialized Star Trek themed music to go along with who we are, because EkkoBar is actually a Star Trek term. If you watch movie number 6 of The Undiscovered Country, you'll hear it being mentioned at the end of the movie. So we wanted to have a little fun, and doing that made me relax. And I come up on stage all happy and bouncy. And, you know, when we're pitching, we're talking about our value, right? We're talking about who we serve, what's in our pipeline. And at the end of the day, trying to show our passion of what we do. And, you know, thankfully and gratefully, the judges acknowledged all of that. With it, we get a $1 million investment match from Elevate Ventures, who's already an investor in us. They did part of our pre-seed round. They've been absolutely amazing to work with since then. Probably one of the best VCs we've ever worked with. And so we are now out raising money, and then whatever we raise, Elevate will match that up to $1 million. And we're growing so fast that raising capital is one of our top priorities at the moment. And I will tell you, we have over $1 million in our sales pipeline.
Congratulations on winning the prize and for these amazing leaps forward.
Thank you.
So a little bit more about AI. So how do you see that AI will help make decisions in the next 5-10 years? And how are people using AI, and how are you using it in your company?
Sure. So our marketing partner is a company called We Create here in Indiana. Amazing, brilliant. And we met them through Elevate. They saw what we were doing. They loved what we were doing. And they're like, okay, we can help you with marketing. And they didn't want us to spend our own cash on marketing, so they actually invested in us, which was great. So we've been working with them. And one of the things they came up with was this concept of social decision intelligence. And I'll go more into that later if you like. But they also came up with, on top of that, superhuman decision maker. And they had the same belief in AI that myself and my co-founder, Amber Dodson, have, in that AI is this great technology to augment, right? It's about helping you make decisions faster, better, and with more clarity and confidence. And that will make you a superhuman decision maker. It is not meant to replace. Right? And we're seeing the struggles in the industry with marketing agencies and copywriters. And it's like, well, people going to AI and just having it generate copy. Yeah, it can do that. But is it authentic? Is it real? Does it have your passion? No, it doesn't. It's not an end. It is only the beginning. And that's what I see happening in general. And that's how we approach it. We use AI to augment what we're doing, and with the data to provide actual answers. Right? It's really good at surfacing things, and it's really good at calculations, and we mix linear algebra in with it and really try to come up with some very powerful sets of data. And so, you know, when I look at all of this and I look at the future, you know, we know companies who are using AI for sports injury detection, because you can use cameras to watch players on field and in practice, and people move repetitively. But if you have an injury, you may not know about it, but your body's going to start to slightly adjust and shift how you move. And AI with cameras can detect it, right? And then say to the right people, we noticed this, go look at it, right? So again, it's about augmenting, providing information, letting the human make decisions. And I really believe that AI used that way can be very powerful.
So you were talking about the social decision intelligence. What does that mean?
So I have to throw out a 25-cent word called psychographics, right? So when you look at dashboards, it's numbers. And in the financial world, when CIOs and CFOs look at sales dashboards, numbers are numbers, right? They don't tell you what customers like, don't like, or whatever, but they need their numbers. Legacy dashboards were the same way. How many likes, how many followers, but they don't give you answers. Psychographics is a concept of understanding the social interest of an individual, right? What are their attitudes? What are their beliefs? What are their interests? What do they care about? And so social decision intelligence is based on the foundation of using social media and psychographics to uncover all these values.
From a marketing perspective, getting all the data, being able to analyzing to make the best decisions forward. Is that correct?
It is. And I'll give you a non-customer example, just because I don't want to say anything about a customer. But recently, Cracker Barrel, a restaurant chain here in the US, changed their logo, right? Spent millions of dollars coming up with new branding. And the political influence in America had a bit of an issue with this. It became an uproar, and so the brand had to revert backward. The question is, was that the general consensus, or was it just a group of people talking very loudly? Okay? So for fun, we analyzed the data on social media. And guess what? The people who cared about the logo and didn't like it changed was a very small minority, and I mean less than 1%. So what they did was they gave in to a very loud voice without thinking about what the social conversation was and what people really cared about. They wasted millions of dollars, where instead, if they had talked to us and we'd shown them the value, they would have then instead been like, all right, we're just going to write it out because it's going to go away. No one is going to stop eating at Cracker Barrel because they changed their logo. I will also give you another example. A major racing organization in the US decided to ban the Confederate flag a number of years ago, right? A lot of backlash. People were like, oh my God, it's the end of the racing series. It'll never be what it was. And we had developed enough technology that we really wanted to test some ideas out. So we actually went and analyzed the data. Come to find out, over 70% of the fans on social media agreed with banning the Confederate flag. So what they saw after the season started was an actual uptick in sales to races. And so, again, are you going to listen to the small voice that yells and screams, or are you going to actually look, ask questions, and get real answers and make real decisions?
We talked a little bit about the sports and entertainment industry. How do you see that AI, how will they use AI in the future? You said, or you mentioned injury detection. You talked about marketing. Are there any other examples?
Sure. I mean, in entertainment, which my other 3 startups were in entertainment, there's all this big scare about using AI for voiceover, right, to replace real talent, for AI actors. And I just think that's absolutely terrible. I mean, we know so many talented individuals, and the last thing I want to do is see an AI character. And a major drink soda company made an AI commercial earlier this year and backfired big time. Social media went after them. A lot of unhappy people. So that's not the future of AI. Can you use AI to punch up a script? Sure, right? There's nothing wrong with that, to having a writer get some help, because, you can't think of everything all the time. And so that makes sense. We've got CG and AI with, CGI. Sure, that makes sense. I think the real opportunity in AI for entertainment is really helping fine-tune product placement, brand sponsorships, and storylines, right? As well as the example with Frankenstein, right? What's working in the trailer? What do you want to do more of, right? We helped a major TV network last year understand the storyline of one of their TV series, right? Who was talking about what characters, which characters had the best storylines, who was the best guest character, so they can bring them back for another episode. We even helped them identify social media accounts that had incredible reach so that they could work with them to keep promoting the show. We helped them find a celebrity guest actor who's a total junkie of the show. So there's a lot of opportunity in entertainment, and entertainment's going through a big change right now, and with streaming and, the broadcast world, viewership declining all the time. So there's a lot of opportunity there. They just need to open themselves up, right? They need to go, all right, we're going to put the playbook aside and let's try new from scratch and understand what's going on. In sports, a lot of talk is on fan engagement and sponsorships, right? So brands spend millions of dollars on logos. And when I saw sporting events as a kid, there were 2 or 3 logos in the stadium. Now you go to a stadium and there's, you can't swing a dead cat without seeing a logo. Who remembers the logos anymore? Nobody does, right? But it's old playbook. Sponsorship is old playbook, right? Marketing agencies are like, oh, we got to find someone to represent, Coca-Cola. So who do we know? Who do we think of who's famous? And that's how they think. Instead, social media has all kind of answers, right? We actually did a test on our application to find a great spokesperson for Coca-Cola related to the TikTok swig trend going on. We found an Olympic athlete. She's all these videos on TikTok about how to make swigs, and they're all using Diet Coke. And she says over and over, it's the best soda ever, right? You have the perfect person, and we found her in 7 seconds, right? Versus agencies spend months. And so you've got that. How do brands connect with audiences other than a logo? Well, let's understand how they're talking about them, right? You have a lot of sports teams have a lot of brands that are sponsoring them, but they don't really connect brand affinity to the sport and what they're doing. So you've got the logos, but you don't have the players promoting them, right? Being like, oh, Nike's a sponsor and I just bought the coolest Nike sneakers. I love them. And you have an athlete talk about it on social media who really means it. You're creating brand affinity. The playbook is dead. And yet so many marketing agencies and so many people who've done the playbook for years just can't seem to give it up. But we're proving every day with our customers that once they give up the playbook, revenue increases.
Back in the day, it used to work that you had focus groups of 5-10 people who used to give their, or maybe 20 people who used to give their opinions or something, and based on that you maybe made the decision. Am I correct that EkkoBar can take basically thousands of social media people, see what they're talking about, and based on that, you can make decisions like a massive focus group?
We've had a number of people actually say that, and here's what's interesting about focus groups that I've heard from many marketers. When you're pulled into a focus group, you're sitting there in a room, you don't usually know who it's for. There's a big, piece of glass where there's people staring at you at the other end and taking notes and probably shaking in their boots, terrified of what you're going to say, right? Well, guess what people do? They say not only what they think, but they say it in a way that they think will mean something to the people behind the glass. They don't give their natural, authentic voice. Social media, good and bad, people say everything. We like to say this is where they speak their truth. It doesn't mean the truth is correct. It just means they speak their truth because they're not watching a piece of glass going, I wonder who's behind it. And so for a large entertainment company, streamer, we've analyzed a number of actors for them, and we've looked at about 400,000 social media posts with our software to break it down in detail, not just what people think of the actor, but what they think of their projects, their movies, how they act, all aspects of it, including where they come from around the world. So it is really the ultimate focus group.
So what are the next big steps for EkkoBar this year and in the next 5 years?
Fundraising is always a fun job, and I say that very sarcastically. I don't think anyone enjoys fundraising, but that's one of our big goals, especially now that we run Rally. So that's good. We've launched our application that looks at social media as a database to find spokespeople and ambassadors and brand ambassadors, sponsors, and, to do research for the Olympics or news articles or sporting events. So we've launched that application. We have another application that's also out there already, which looks at the conversation about things. So when the trailer comes out for Frankenstein, we look at the about. What are people saying about it? What do they like? What actors are they talking about? Do they talk about the director? Do they talk about the visual effects? So we have those. So, really it's about customer growth, adding more technology, more features to the products. We're also working on a third application in partnership with another company that will completely upend logo sponsorships. It'll make them a thing, I don't want to say obsolete, but when it comes out, it'll challenge the status quo of logos, because audiences don't care about logos. Audiences care about a moment in sports that makes them feel something. And if you could capitalize on that moment in sports, right, and you can capitalize on that feeling, you'd be amazed what the audience will do. And that's what we're building.
That's absolutely amazing. Rhys, thank you so much for sharing your journey, for sharing your story about EkkoBar, and just for being on the podcast. I wish you all the best to your future.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.